See it in theaters or stay at home? Wait to see it on a plane or go with your significant other? These are the questions we will be answering on today's episode, taking a look at October movie releases and hopefully saving you and us some time and money going to the theaters because it's getting so expensive, but giving you insights on what to see in theaters and information on all the big releases for this upcoming month. I'm your host, John Owens from the YouTube channel MOVIE Voyager, where we do in-depth research and analysis on film production, abandoned cameras, and drama in the industry that gets us in trouble. But joining me on the episode is co-host Tim LaPointe. Tim, what is the first film you remember seeing that left an impact or impression on a younger version of yourself?
That's such a deep question. Man, I feel like, wow.
It's time for...
Man, that is so deep.
This segment is sponsored by the Fran 8K. Take your cinematic skills to new lows.
So there's a couple ways that I could go with this. One could be, if you wanted to go way back, you could go Mary Poppins. When I was very little, Mary Poppins was enlightening and enchanting to me. And Julie Andrews in that movie, as a small child, showed me what my expectations should be for a good woman to love. But then, as I got older, really, Return of the King is the movie that got me into movies. And so if I had to pick one film, it would probably be Return of the King. Just because like that was such an epic, and not epic in like the cool kid usage of the word, but like it is an epic. That's what got me really into movies and was like, cinema is my future.
Let's get into our first release of the week of October 6th, which is just coming up here. We've got a bunch of films moving around because of Taylor Swift, who just doesn't ever want to seem to die down at all in social media, even making her way into Tim and I's love of NFL football with Travis Kelce this week.
Yeah, which I'm sure was nothing short of a promotion for her film.
We'll get to that later on the podcast with her film coming up this month and some interesting tidbits about it and the fact that I have to go to it. But anyways, October 6th, we've got a few different movies. I'll go ahead and read them off in order. We got Exorcist Believer, which actually, again, right off the bat, takes a hit from Taylor Swift. They originally tried to make it like a new Oppenheimer Barbie thing, a new Barbenheimer. They were calling it the Exorcist Eras Tour. They moved back a week to take advantage of that. And so there you got that. You got The Martian King's Daughter, which is now not happening again because of Taylor Swift, moved to November 3rd. Foe and Priscilla. But Priscilla, again, was another movie that was delayed because of Taylor Swift, because they have some, I think, award aspirations for this movie. Oh, yeah. And that was also delayed to November. So we got 2 releases out of the 4 or 5 we had here. So, and I also forgot to mention The Burial. I don't know why I skipped ahead of that one. And Craven the Hunter was also another one that actually ended up moving to 2024. And I'm not sure that was because of Taylor Swift, but I think that was probably because of the writer's strike. So so we got three movies. So we'll go ahead and start off with The Burial.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how y'all doing? All of y'all that don't know who I am, my name is
Willie Gary.
Willie Gary.
Willie Gary.
William Gary.
We don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning this case.
What does it feel like to be some small-time nobody on the verge of bankruptcy?
See the hypocrisy.
You sit your ass down. Hey, wait.
What's my...
Can't split the pole. Can't split the pole. Now, come on.
This is one that I did not know about until I was researching for this month, as it just seems like one. Well, we can rate it later. But The Burial, basically, this is it's based on a true story. The film tells of a personal injury lawyer from Mississippi who took on the case of Jeremiah O'Keefe, an owner of a local chain of funeral homes. O'Keefe claimed that he had been cheated by a major funeral parlor conglomerate with the cooperation of O'Keefe's lawyer, who was an admitted racist. He won $260 million for O'Keefe. Why does the synopsis they give us already tell us what happens in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the tough thing with true stories nowadays is like all the information is findable anyway. So it's kind of like you might as well throw it in the summary. And I don't think this is the kind of movie that you're going to go to in expectation of trying to figure out what happened. Like, oh man, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that this, you know what I mean? It's the kind of film that you go to if you're just looking for like a casual, feel good, because like there's a lot of movies that have come out like this, these true stories, especially dealing with racism in the past few years. And that's kind of what you go for. You go for an important story. You go knowing that it's true. And also, frankly, like people are going to go to see Jamie Foxx and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, which is who is also, we did not mention yet, is in this. Jamie Foxx, Tommy Lee Jones, and Alan Ruck from Succession, the older brother from Succession that always gets left behind. This budget for this movie is $32.5 million, which...
That's tiny.
But it's still pretty high for like what this is. I imagine Jamie Foxx probably got most of this budget, right?
Yeah, probably.
Oddly enough, as I'm looking this up, it has 100% on the Tomato Meter score. From, and not just like the low end. I mean, you got like critics like from The Atlantic, RogerEbert.com, IndieWire, Hollywood Reporter, all giving like hundreds out. So I gotta say, I did not expect this watching the trailer.
But yeah, it's I think it's good to see Jamie Foxx in something. Obviously that's been a whole crazy situation. Tommy Lee Jones, man, he's definitely showing his age. And so it's interesting to see him in a film like this. This doesn't, 10 years ago, I don't know if Tommy Lee Jones is taking a film like this one. But I do, watching the trailer, I'm intrigued by the dynamic of those two. That's not typically a pairing that I would think would work super well. But yeah, I'm intrigued by how Tommy Lee Jones handles just a heartfelt film like this, and to see how it does.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. Sometimes these lawyer movies are good, kind of, but this one just seems kind of like a bit of a strange story. But again, it's 100%. I mean, critic score 100%. Maybe that pulls you in to kind of come see this, be a little bit more interested. I'm a little bit more interested in it now. Just because it does seem on the surface, and maybe it's just the bad way of promoting this. It seems a little bit like a run of the mill kind of lawyer case. Movie. It
definitely doesn't feel a whole lot different from the movies like this that we've seen in the past 5 years or so.
No, and even I would say the visual quality of it when watching the trailer, sometimes this is why, I mean, you don't watch trailers as much as I do. Sometimes for me, I don't even watch the whole trailer. I just like to see what the kind of like the stylistic tone of it is going to be. And this one just feels kind of like they threw a warm LUT on top of it. That's kind of it, which is fine for movies. But to me, I like a little more style, but story is always the biggest part here. But Burial coming out October 6th. Next, we have The Exorcist Believer.
Good day. Hey, be home by dinner.
I love you. Good morning, Mr. Fielding.
And here are your daughters, Angela and Catherine. It's about 7 hours ago, and that's the last information we have.
Catherine. Body in the blood. The body in the blood.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Exorcism is a ritual. Every culture, every religion, they all use different methods.
Is that Catherine's heartbeat?
They're beating in sync.
God played a trick on you.
We've met before.
This is going on from the long history of the Exorcist movies, which we'll talk about here in just a second, when his daughter, Angela, which is a funny name for this movie, and her friend, Catherine, show signs of demonic possession. It unleashes a chain of events that forces single father, Victor Fielding, to confront the nadir of evil. Terrified and desperate, he seeks out Chris MacNeil, the only person alive who's witnessed anything like this before.
So here's a question that I have about the Exorcist films. So we just saw, in our last episode, we briefly talked about Saw 10.
Yes.
How long do you think that these horror film franchises can keep going on like this? Like whether it's the Mike Myers series, The Exorcist, Saw. I mean, it's crazy how long these have gone on and been sustainable in the box office.
Yeah. And this one has been a long, like this is probably one of the first original kind of like horror franchises, like I guess of the modern, because the first one came out in 1971.
Yeah.
And it was like blew away critics. I think there was actually a lot of backlash to the movie because of the horror elements and like the religious artifacts and stuff they used in the movie. I'm trying to think. I tried to watch. I'm still trying to go through the first one. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I'm not sure how long these will continue to go on. This series has made $661 million. And it's, I believe, this will be the 8th entry of the Exorcist series. They also had a TV show, I'm pretty sure, that didn't do well. But basically what I saw from the consensus is like most of the movies after this didn't fare so well in the ratings. Like the first one is heralded as like being one of the best, a very commercially successful one that's very faithful because it's based on a book series. But to me, getting back to the this new one, if you guys want to go check out some of the Exorcist history, it's kind of interesting. It's not the biggest horror franchise, that going to The Conjuring. Even The Conjuring's newer. This one to me actually freaks me out a little bit more watching the trailer than The Nun 2 did. The Nun 2 was a great watch. It wasn't as scary as I kind of wished it would be. I think it was decent. It was a good entry, but just kind of like on the back half, I think, of the Conjuring series when I saw it. Which The Conjuring from last month, or The Nun 2, sorry, which Adrian and I watched in a completely empty theater. That was terrifying.
Yeah, no, I would never.
This one actually definitely freaks me out because it has children in it. The children are the ones that are possessed.
I feel like anytime you combine spiritual demonic activity and families and children, you've got a pretty good recipe for horror.
Yep. And it sounds like they're making them like choose between the two of them. And they're like, it's very creepy. Definitely going to be going on. I'm definitely going to be going on. I'm definitely going to be going on the opening night.
Yeah, I will not. But look, I mean, and John knows this, like, I'm not a big fan of horror, but one thing that continues to impress me about the genre is the loyalty of their fans. And just the fact that you can do an 8th film, 40 something years after the first one came out. Like studios don't make these movies without knowing for certain that they're going to get butts in the seats. And so people are going to go see this movie just because of the name. And that's really impressive to me, that the horror genre, and specifically these franchises that we're talking about, have built something that's been so foundational that it lasts through so many generations.
Yep. And I think this is the second one in the trilogy that they're making. So he's also going to be, looks like he's the executive producer for the next one as well, which I'd imagine he's going to be the director. Speaking of David Gordon Green, who has directed other movies like Halloween, Mythic Quest. If you're a big fan of that Apple TV show about that's interesting. He did Mythic Quest and like a couple of others. So he's a decent director you got on this. But yeah, I'll agree with you on the horror movie aspects of it. I think it's becoming a stronger genre than it was.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of money in it. I think people are trying to figure out how to do it better. Actually, thinking about it, it's almost been 50 years since the first Exorcist one. So this is a long-living franchise.
I will say it does give me a lot more respect for people like Ari Aster, who are getting into that horror genre, but seeking to make it their own. And I do... Man, I wonder if sometimes we kind of forgive the horror genre for doing the very thing that we're critical of the rest of the film world for, which is just repeating IP. And so I wonder how long they'll be able to keep getting away with just continuing to build on these franchises without presenting good original horror content.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely, like you're mentioning Ari Aster, and you're seeing A24 actually take over a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
With that, and I think you'll continue to see it. It's one of those genres that you really can get away with low budgets and still make decent content and make a lot of money. Like the margins are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so there's that one. I'm definitely gonna be seeing that one. Up next is Foe.
10. Expecting anyone?
You've been selected to live up there. You need to have an intimate understanding of your marriage, the good and the bad. We're going to ensure Hen has company while you're away. We're going to replace you.
I don't want a robot living with my wife.
Oh, I'm excited for this one.
He's excited.
I'm very excited. So this one is starring Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal. And I am a big fan of both of them. Now, granted, Paul Mescal, the only work of his that I've seen is After Sun, which was just an incredible film. His performance was phenomenal, absolutely deserved the Oscar nomination last year. Saoirse Ronan, I've been watching her stuff for a long time, since back when she was in that movie with Keira Knightley and James McAvoy, and the name of it is escaping me right now. Atonement, incredible film. And she was very young in that one. But then she really kind of came to rise when Brooklyn came out, and she got an Oscar nomination for that one. She's just been a lot of stuff that I really like. She's shown a good bit of range. She was in Lady Bird, Little Women. And I just really respect the choices that she's made with the films that she's in. And so the fact that she's chosen to be in this one, and especially across from Paul Mescal, I'm all here for it.
Yeah, Paul Mescal, kind of interesting. I've been wanting to watch that movie you mentioned. It was After Sun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very interested in watching that. And did you know, before we get into the synopsis for this, Paul Mescal is supposedly going to be in he's going to be in the next Gladiator movie.
I did know that.
He's going to be Lucius, the son of what's his name, the dead one. Which, did you hear about how Ridley Scott, and maybe this is another subject we can get into later on when we get closer to it, but Ridley Scott actually tried to pitch them on such a crazy movie idea, because at first he didn't want to make this. So when the studios are asking him to write something, he basically did this whole thing where he's basically going to be in the afterlife, and he fights his way out of the afterlife to regain, so he can reincarnate himself, comes to life, figures out that his son, or Lucius or whatever, which I guess is not his son, but the kid he liked, Lucius has just become just like his emperor, who was the dad, who was mean. And he has to fight him, and he gets support of the early Christians in that time to go fight against them. And he supposedly has a run-in with none other than Jesus.
Wow.
And this was the original script for the Gladiator.
That's crazy even for Ridley.
I don't think he wanted to make the movie.
No.
Anyways, the Foe. Foe is actually pretty cool. It's a haunting exploration of marriage and identity set in an uncertain world. Hen and Junior, super creative names, farm a secluded piece of land that has been in Junior's family for generations, but their quiet life is thrown into turmoil when an uninvited stranger, Aaron Pierre, shows up at their door with a startling proposal. Based on the best-selling author Ian Reid's novel, directed by Garth Davis and co-written by Davis and Reid, Foe's mesmerizing imagery and persistent questions about the nature of humanity and artificial humanity bring the not-too-distant future to luminous life. Basically, better synopsis of this, because it's a terrible synopsis they gave. They're trying to sing a very pretentious movie. Basically, this guy gets, they're trying to send him on some kind of space mission. They don't really reveal too much in the trailer about what the space mission is. And then they tried, it sounds like it's going to be an incredibly long time he's going to be up there. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to pair up his wife with a little robot man of himself. And he seems to be a little bit hesitant about that. And it seems like it's going to push them apart, I guess, in the marriage is what I would guess. And they're going to have some kind of weird conclusion. Maybe it's going to be some kind of commentary on our modern age and AI or something like that. The one question I have about this, I really hope it is different, because this sounds very similar to a Black Mirror episode, very similar to the Black Mirror episode that just came out this year, where the astronauts could actually come inhabit the bodies of robots. But I don't see it taking the crazy turns of that, where they're, Tim, you haven't watched that one, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a sucker for space, and part of what I think makes a movie like Interstellar might be the classic space movie that people may talk about, but part of what makes a movie like that work so well, or the one with, man, I'm totally drawing a blank, with Cillian Murphy.
Sunshine?
Yeah, Sunshine. Like, part of what makes those movies work so well is the balance of the pursuit of space, but also the nature of humanity. Particularly in the case of Interstellar, just the situation of family and the contrast of how exploration sometimes gets in the way of love and family. And so, yeah, I'm all about this kind of movie, and especially with these kind of actors. So definitely planning on watching this one for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much this will go into space, but yeah, it should be an interesting film. Looks like it's going to be those like movie posters sometimes where they just look like they're already trying to win an award before the movies even come out. Yeah, that's what this one looks like. I'm probably going to go give this one a watch. I think it sounds interesting.
And it's really timely too when you talk about artificial intelligence, and obviously, as at the time that we're recording this, the Writers Guild their strike is coming to an end, and a big part of that strike and that period of time where they were not in agreement has to do with artificial intelligence. And so, maybe the artificial intelligence trope is probably going to be overdone in the next few years. But it's a very relevant topic right now, and I'm excited to see how they explore it.
And it's coming down to a very personal one, which, like I mentioned before, Black Mirror has explored this in some other ways before. But it's cool to see it in this kind of way where it's more in the artistic space. But basically, it is going to be interesting to see, like, if you could take everything about you in essence and put it into something like that could be AI and recreate you. What's the ethical issues you run into? What's some of the relationship issues you run into? But yeah, that'll be interesting. And that is it for our October 6th releases. And like we mentioned before, Priscilla was also supposed to be in here, but that's delayed till November. That looks great.
Yeah.
Moving into October 13th releases.
Here we go.
Ordinary Angels moved to 2024 as well. I think they were up to a count of 4 films that have been moved so far because of Taylor Swift's concerts. It's ridiculous that this concert has literally kicked some movies into next year.
It's unheard
now,
of.
I'm sure the writer's strike has helped a little bit too. So they're like, it's a good excuse for them to kind of kick it down.
Yeah, but like, especially with Ordinary Angels, they're not postponing because of the writer's strike. Like, there's just no way that film even comes close to competing.
Yeah, they probably thought they had that.
Eras Tour.
Like, no one's going to do anything October 13th. And
well, you look at the films coming out, like, there's not a whole lot of film, like, without getting too far down the road, there's not a whole lot of films in this time of year that are really strong cases for, I've got to go to the movie theater. I'm talking to people now who are like, man, I want to go to the movies, but I don't know what to go watch because, like, everything that's coming out, I'm not really interested in. And so, like you're saying, like, movies like Ordinary Angels probably long ago planned for October, knowing that there would not be a whole lot of choices. And now there's only one choice that they have to worry about, and it's kicked them to next year.
Taylor Swift, which, absolutely crazy. October the 13th, Friday the 13th, which it's kind of like a little upsetting that she kicked all the horror films off of their perfect Friday the 13th week leading up to Halloween this year. I'm like, man. So now we get a Friday 13th release of Taylor Swift Eras Tour.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
The phenomenon that is Taylor Swift continues indefinitely. Now on the big screen. Immerse yourselves in this once-in-a-lifetime concert film event and witness the history-making tour in theaters. Director Sam Wrench. Don't know who that is.
Here's the deal, though. Like, have you ever watched a concert film
in a movie theater? No.
Forget even a movie theater. Like, have you ever watched a concert film? Because
every once in a while.
I've watched a couple. And, like, for an artist that I really like I can kind of casually watch it in the background. Mm-hmm. But, man, to commit yourself to sitting in a movie theater for a long period of time to watch something that you know isn't live, that you know happened months ago. It's crazy the power that she has, that they're projecting the numbers that they are and expecting people to really enjoy this thing.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I have to go because my wife bought us tickets to go, and she has no one else to go with, so I have to go. And we can get into that part later. But yeah, the only things I like to actually watch, like those kind of things, are like live performances of like very musical artists.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like watching a whole concert of Bon Iver that he did, but it's all like and Hans Zimmer's concert live.
Yeah.
But those are not like you're not listening for like the show or the tour aspect of it. Like that's not what I'm listening to those because I like the music aspect of it. I really like the music. But with this, yeah, I don't. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's hard for me to I don't necessarily relate with her music. I really think she's a very successful businesswoman and knows what she's doing when it comes to writing songs, and definitely knows what she's doing when it comes to getting her fans to do stuff and making money. And also like she does great things for her staff, like paying all the, the drivers and stuff like millions of dollars in bonuses after her tour, which is really cool to see. Or I think they got like $100,000 bonuses or something. She spent like $50 million in bonuses for all of her crew, which is really cool. Which also kind of makes sense when you hear about how did she make this during all of these strikes. And this is like the studios got killed over what she did during this, which was actually agree to a lot of the, the union's requests for it, and asked, paid everyone fair wages and stuff, and was able to get around and made little side arrangements with them because, she's not part of the AMPTP or the studios. Because of that, smart for her, reportedly already could earn $100 to $145 million in the opening weekend.
That's insane.
Already blew away pre-sale tickets. I think it's like up there with some of the highest in history. It is interesting.
I went to go get tickets to a movie the other day on AMC. The day that the tickets came out for this, I didn't even know about this movie. Like legitimately did not know. I had to wait. There was a 15-minute wait for me to get into the AMC app to buy tickets to it. That's never happened before. I've never had to wait to get into the app. And what's really, now granted, as a fan of the theater, one thing I do appreciate about this is that this is obviously like a theater only movie. Like if this movie goes on streaming, I don't think it does well at all. Like this is a movie that you're going to have to
you underestimate the freaking.
I mean, maybe, but the live concert experience, like the reason that people are going out in droves is to see it on a big screen, to experience it as close to a concert as you can.
Yep.
And so, I think this is great for the theater industry that this is happening. But man, like, do you think Drake could do this? I don't. Ariana Grande,
this is like
Lizzo, like none of these people could do this.
It's because I think that's again what separates Taylor Swift from other artists and stuff. Where I don't think she has like the highest. She's really good at writing catchy songs, really good with that. I don't think she's the best. Like she's not the most like talented music artist out there. But she's really good at marketing. She's really good at like selling stuff. She's really good at developing that fan base and doing all these little, she got people running around trying to figure out theories all the time and talking about that so it's like, it's not even about her music half the time. Very smart. And already like the Swifties are already like writing all these articles about that. They're concerned about this film because it's only 2 hours and 45 minutes and the real concert's 2.5 hours. So it's how they're really concerned about. You might not get the fan interactions. You might not get all this stuff. It's going to be a lesser version of the. I'm like, yeah, because it's a film, so they probably cut out all the extra stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I would expect that.
So I don't know why they're concerned about it. It's also a movie, a film. So like, I my one big question is because I have to go to this. I told my wife like, I love you, but if people start treating the theater like they're at an actual concert and they're like getting up and singing and going crazy and singing really loudly. No, and I'm like I might have to go and do something.
Like because I'm gonna be walking to go see Killers of the Flower Moon, and I'm gonna walk by a theater of like 150 Taylor Swift fans screaming at the top of their lungs. And there's going to be this emotional scene with Leonardo DiCaprio. And I'm going to hear through the wall, "You were Romeo and like it's like, my goodness."
Someone was already like making jokes about that. I can't remember what film it was. But they were doing that where it's like, you know, you're watching this like whatever film, and then they just have like the Taylor Swift fans singing the song. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm becoming
a little
more and more
concerned
like
about
Clint
it,
Eastwood every day. I'm like, get off my lawn.
It's good for the theater industry. That's good for them to make, because they're reportedly, you know, $145 million on the opening weekend's really good.
Yeah. So I actually work for a place that is running a theater ad right now. Actually, it's ending very soon. And the theater is really trying to pitch us on keeping the ad in the theater. And the sole reason, their big reason why, is a Taylor Swift movie. Like, they're not talking about Killers of the Flower Moon. They're not talking about the Paw Patrol movie. They're not talking about any of this stuff. They're saying, no, Taylor Swift, there's going to be $100 to $145 million spent on tickets. You should keep your ad in the theater.
Okay, I know you mentioned Paw Patrol. Do you know Paw Patrol currently has 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
Wow.
It's a little ridiculous.
Well, it makes me a little more excited for this weekend because I'm taking my toddler to go see it. So maybe there's hope.
I'm going to see Creator.
Did Greg Fraser shoot Paw Patrol?
I don't know.
Because maybe that would. This is a Steven Spielberg movie, right?
Yeah, there you go. Just got to hype yourself up. Think about it. Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and move out of the October 13th weekend, which literally was all taken over by freaking Swifties and Taylor Swift. And
Swifties.
But we move on to October 20th for the movie that we've all been waiting for a long time, that's been getting a ton of awards buzz before it. Killers of the Flower Moon.
You know, you got nice color skin. What color would you say that is?
My color.
This wealth should come to us.
Their time is over.
When this money started coming, we should have known it came with something else.
Expecting a miracle to make all this go away. You know they don't happen anymore.
Based on David Grant's broadly lauded best-selling book, Killers of a Flower Moon is set in the 1920s Oklahoma and depicts the serial murders of members of oil-wealthy Osage Nation. Apologize for probably saying that wrong. But a string of brutal crimes that came to be known as the Reign of Terror. All around oil, all around money, all around manifest destiny, probably, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Martin Scorsese, director, getting up there in age. Could this be his last movie?
I don't think so. In fact, I think I'm looking at his IMDb now. It looks like he has something else already in the works with Leo attached to it. Now, I mean, sometimes this stuff just doesn't happen. And I get that. But man, I just feel like Marty's going to make movies till he dies. You know, especially he's so opinionated about the industry that I just can't see him stopping when he has such a huge opportunity still to leave an incredible imprint on what the movie industry is. And so I really think he's going to keep working. Now, I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, he's getting up there, but what excites me about this movie is that like, it's a long movie. There's some complaints about the runtime. I know that, but Marty's doing what Marty wants to do.
Yep. 206-minute runtime. I believe it is his longest movie he's ever made, and he had a longer cut of it, supposedly.
Yeah.
That the studios made him cut.
Now, wasn't The Irishman really long too, though?
It was. It's actually beating The Irishman.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a big thing, is people have been complaining like, oh, go sit and like, but I did see someone post on there about like here's people complaining about having to sit and watch a longer Martin Scorsese movie when we don't know how many he probably don't have many more films left in him.
So like, John, who's your favorite artist? Like, who's your favorite musical artist?
Oh, gosh, that's a hard one. I mean, for right now, like when I'm really listening to Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer. Would you complain about a 4-hour Hans Zimmer concert?
Oh God, no.
Like that's the thing is, I feel like the people that are complaining about the runtime are people that don't actually care about Martin Scorsese and like don't really respect his work. And so for people like us who really respect the filmography and really respect who he is as an artist, it's like give me a 5-hour movie, Marty. Like I just want to see you cook.
Yep. Totally agree. And I mean, he's got a great cast with this one, you know, with DiCaprio coming in, though I have heard a lot of complaints about his accent in this movie, his little Southern-ish, like, I'm not sure, is it Southern or is it like Midwestern accent? I'm trying to, like, it's kind of weird a little bit.
But I also don't care.
Yeah, I guess we'll see when it gets into this. A lot of people complained about like Chris Pratt's accent for the Mario movie back earlier this year, and that movie did just fine. But there's a lot of buzz around this movie. It looks like a classic Martin Scorsese film.
And Brendan Fraser's coming back.
Yep. Yeah, super excited about it. What's your, like, thinking back on a Martin Scorsese thing, what's your favorite Martin Scorsese film?
My favorite Scorsese, man, that's a tough question because there's a lot of them that I love. It might be Shutter Island. I'm a big Shutter Island fan.
That. Funny enough, I actually just watched that with my wife this week because she had never seen it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a movie that'll mess you up a good bit. The Shutter Island, but also for me, Goodfellas is up there too. Obviously, that's the classic Marty. I feel like that's the one that people talk about a lot. And if you want to talk about like old school Marty, I think Goodfellas is the one that's up there. Did you know, by the way, that he also directed the music video for Bad by Michael Jackson?
I did not. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Good for him. Look at that. I mean, he's got things going all the way back to the 50s. He's been doing this for a while.
I bet you I know what your favorite Marty is, though.
What is it?
Silence.
Yep, you're right. Silence. It was his little passion project that he's always been he's been wanting to always do. I cannot imagine he made that movie to make money. But it has Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver in it, and Liam Neeson makes an appearance as well. Great movie. Watched that in the theater by myself. Just a great philosophical movie. I love it.
Yeah.
I like it. Great film. Yeah. Just classic kind of him. Also a very long movie. But yeah, that one comes out, Killers of the Flower Moon, October 20th. And we will be covering that a lot on our YouTube channel for Frame Voyager. Just the production aspect of it, behind the scenes a little bit as we get closer to it. Just a few more looks like left, or actually just one left for this one, is The Post.
Our top story this morning. For the second time in just over a week, a Rayford High School student has been found dead.
So they found this kid's body in the park yesterday morning?
I just can't keep having these dead kids popping up all over my town.
There's honestly not much to say about this film. The front of it kind of confuses you because it has a helmet on it, like of a football player. It has something to do with basically the only synopsis they really give you is The Post is an edgy revenge thriller steeped in the undermined boundaries of social media crime and punishment. That is the only thing I could find on it.
I could be completely off for this, but I just feel like if you make a movie called The Post, knowing that Steven Spielberg made a movie called The Post just a handful of years ago, you've already kind of set the expectations for yourself that you're not really thinking that you're going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, and it is not anywhere close to being that level of a film. Director Justin Hunt, who has filmed a bunch of stuff that it looks like this is going to be a pretty low budget film. There's not really anyone that the top cast that I have any idea who they are, or even in like TV, like it's just a bunch of random people. If you look at the actual quality of the footage when you're watching the trailers, it doesn't look good. It looks like it's some kind of coach maybe that's like leading a football program and people start dying or there's some kind of murder and investigation. And they try to, if you watch the trailer, you kind of start laughing a little bit at some of like the cinematic hits they have in it on certain things, because they're trying to like make it seem more like tense and whatever than it really is. And it, or like edgy, especially like their synopsis said. Yeah.
I mean, I will say,
doesn't look good.
Props to Justin Hunt. So just reading his biography, like he's done a lot of corporate work, and he's run a video production company for a while that's done a ton of corporate work. And so for somebody to say, hey, I've done video and I want to shift and I want to try and make a movie, like he's done some documentaries that have been pretty successful. Like good for him. It doesn't necessarily mean that movie's going to be my cup of tea. And unfortunately, I think sometimes you find when people spend a lot of time in one lane of video and then shift into movies,
it's a hard shift.
Sometimes those influences from their previous work are a positive thing, and sometimes they're not. So I guess that would be kind of where I might be intrigued about this movie, is to see someone who's not really done a whole lot of narrative stuff, who's shifted their career towards narrative.
The only thing, I agree. I think the only thing in this that would make sense to be redeemable would have to have a very good narrative area to it, because the cinematography on it, like I didn't know he was, like you said, did corporate work. That makes sense with the lighting. Yeah, the lighting, the way it's framed and everything, very flat-ish. Yeah. Like if it looks very corporate. I might give it a little spin. Definitely not going to see it. Spoiler, I'm not going to theaters to see that one. Sorry. But that wraps up that week's the week of October 20th. So you have the choice to go between Killers of the Flower Moon or The Post. Choose wisely. October 27th, our last weekend of October, and getting closer to Thanksgiving. Oh, actually, no, Halloween. Sorry, Thanksgiving's no.
Yeah.
Halloween.
I mean, it's still closer to Thanksgiving.
It is getting closer. Five Nights at Freddy's.
They shut it down years ago. The owner's just not ready to let it go yet.
You must be new security guard.
Can I help you, officer?
Have you met them yet?
There are ghost children possessing giant robots. Thanks for the heads up.
Mike Schmidt, Josh Hutcherson, a troubled security guard, starts a nighttime job at Freddy's Fazbear's Pizza, a once successful family entertainment center where he discovers its 4 animatronic mascots: Freddy, Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica the Chicken, and Foxy the Pirate Fox. Move and kill anyone that is still there after midnight. Based on the classic game Five Nights at Freddy's, which the title is, I think we all remember playing this game and kind of having fun when it first came out. I think this came out a little bit after, I could be wrong, this came out a little bit after Slender Man, which was a massive game when Tim and I were in college. Because I remember trying to go to sleep one night because I had a really early, like 8 a.m. class, and everyone next door in the next room was playing Slender Man and like losing their ever-loving minds over whatever.
Oh, I remember pranking people out in the woods dressed up as Slender Man. Like, there's a picture that exists on social media of me dressed up as Slender Man.
So maybe that was our generation's, or maybe I can't remember when Five Nights at Freddy's came out. If it was before then or after that, but it's kind of in that era where you had a lot of these kinds of games. But I think you were just like the security guard, and you had to watch and see and make sure none of them were moving, and you had to switch between screens. And if you switch the screen, they could move. You had to keep them from getting to you.
So it was just after it came out in 2014. Is when that game came out.
It's probably why I wasn't like as into Five Nights at Freddy's as that. You got a director, Emma Tammy. She's known for The Wind and The Left Right Game.
Well, and neither you look of at which the cast on this one too, and man, so you got basically a guy who's most known for playing Shaggy in Matthew Lillard. Yep. And then you've got Josh Hutcherson, who did the Hunger Games and then has done like a few things since then. But it's man, how wildly different his career was from Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this movie is $25 million. Universal Pictures distributing it. It's from the creators of Megan, the scary doll AI movie back earlier this year, which pretty cool. Actually got to talk to the puppeteer of the Megan doll in one of our videos on Frame Voyager. So go check it out. But yeah, I gotta say, I think I had a couple notes here. I from watching this from the first time, I'm not holding out a lot of hope for this. Again, this kind of comes down to my like eye test theory for me, which fails me sometimes. But I don't really like the color grading on this one. It kind of feels cheap-ish, and I don't really think it helps to set the scary mood of this thing, unless it's not wanting to be like overly scary, because it's kind of like even some of the the animatronics when they show them, they're not like looking that scary.
This is a movie that's strictly trying to get like those 15 to 25-year-olds in the seats. That's really all they're trying to do, is they know that it's a game that was massively relevant for that specific demographic, and that's their target audience, and they're sticking to it. You know, it's not a movie that it's trying to reach a broad audience. It's not trying to be a super incredible award nominated film. It's just something that they know that they can make, and they can make money off of it.
I would agree. I'm probably going to go see this in theaters. But I'm not sure if that was going to like jive with my recommendation at the end of this, because I go see a ton of stuff at theaters that I wouldn't recommend people go to see.
Me too.
But I'm hoping it's good. I'm hoping it's a little bit good. But sometimes there's just films like this that, like the color grading, just and the way they make it, I just can't get past it. It's a little too warm and colorful for me, and it's not warm and colorful in a way that I would like it to be to make it creepy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. I think they could have done a little bit better of making this maybe, and I know people hate this in today's like movies and stuff, like the darker kind of like gray, like I think this one could have benefited from that a little bit, making it a little bit darker, hiding some of the imperfections, because you only have a $25 million budget, which means some of these, some of the CGI, some of the VFX you're going to have for these animatronics, not going to be as good as maybe you want them to be. I would have liked to see it a little bit darker of a take, so you can hide everything a little bit more and make them a little bit more creepy. But it could be good. Sometimes my eye tests don't work well, but I for this one, I feel like I feel like I'm gonna be vindicated when I go watch this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that, because if the next film that we're talking about here is Freelance, which comes out the same weekend, and you're talking a lot about color. And for me, when I watched the trailer for this one, it just seems very deliberate in their style, the way it was lit, the way it was shot, the way it was colored, of what this film is trying to be.
I'm running a business, and right now that business is getting a journalist and Annetta Paldonia.
Who's a journalist?
I have resigned my position here.
Not interested.
So many wonderful things about my country.
What the hell just happened?
Your one-man security detail happened. He's a hero.
You gotta be alive to have a scoop for a lifetime. We never should have come.
This Freelance is a film that's coming out, if you want to get into it, just with John Cena, Alison Brie. And it's really just trying to be kind of a fun, classic John Cena action film. Like, I saw a review of a Liam Neeson film lately on Letterboxd, where the person said genre Liam Neeson. And I think John Cena's kind of becoming that way a little bit. I mean, obviously he's had cameos and stuff like Barbie, and he's but yeah, man, when you say John Cena in action movie, I know exactly what to expect. And when I turned on the trailer and saw the style of it, it's 100% predictable what this movie's going to be like.
Yeah, and this movie, which is basically an ex-special forces operative stuck in a dead-end desk job, John Cena. You can't tie John Cena to a desk.
You also can't see him.
That's true. Reluctantly takes on a gig to provide private security for a washed-up journalist, Alison Brie, as she interviews a ruthless but impeccably dressed dictator, Juan Pablo Raba. When a military coup breaks out just as she's about to get the scoop of a lifetime, the unlikely trio must figure out how to survive the jungle, the assassins, and each other in order to make it out alive. It's probably going to be a fun movie.
Yeah.
My thing is it kind of feels like a billion other movies, kind of the same premise, same plot. And going back to your like color grading or like the way it looks intentionally, this is one of those kind of movies that I don't need you to do anything special with. It's a little bit of a slapstick comedy. It's a little bit of an action flick. You don't need to go too crazy with like the look and style of this. You want it to kind of stay pretty mainline, streamlined with that. This, so this isn't one that I would look for.
This is the Taylor Swift of action films.
Yeah, and this has a budget of $40 million, which I also wrote in my notes. Do you think that most of the budget for this movie went to John Cena?
Yeah.
Is that what most of the budget's for?
Yeah. There's probably a way to find out.
It just seems like a little bit of a cheap ripoff. And honestly, I'm really surprised at that $40 million budget because I highly doubt, because usually the rules you want to make about two and a half times whatever your production budget is to make profit. I don't really see this making over even 40 million. Maybe it hits 40. I could be totally wrong. Maybe John Cena has a much better draw than I think he does.
I just like if you put somebody like a Channing Tatum or a Vin Diesel in this kind of role.
Yeah.
I feel like you get a much bigger draw. I just don't know that John Cena's ever really been that level of a draw.
Yeah, and you get like October 20. I mean, you're on the heels of Killers of the Flower Moon, so people are still going to be going to see that.
Taylor Swift's going to be playing for the next 2 months.
Yeah. 5 Nights at Freddy's. Well, actually, the Taylor Swift's, there's some questions on whether or not it can survive long at the box office.
Interesting.
Whether or not it's just going to be the Swifties that go see it, and when they're done, they're done. But even with like 5 Nights at Freddy's, I would assume would do better here than Freelance, but I could be
This
wrong.
is going to be one of those movies that if people go see it in the theater, it's going to be because they scheduled a date night to go to the movies, and this was what they thought might be the least risky option to go see.
Yeah,
like I don't know, like Killers of the Flower Moon, like that might not be quite up my alley, or 5 Nights at Freddy's. It seems a little freaky. Let's go watch a John Cena action movie. Like that's what this movie's going to be.
Totally. And rounding out our movies of the month of October, and we usually just cover ones that are being released nationwide. There's, of course, some that'll be released on streamers, all that kind of stuff, but that would make this podcast like 4 hours. So, Sight.
Ah, there he is, the good doctor.
So the stepmother poured sulfuric acid in each of her eyes.
The doctor has declared your patient irreversibly blind.
Yes, but I developed this new breakthrough technology.
I can't see anything.
An inspiring true story that looks at what it means to see beyond oneself. The film traces Dr. Wong's journey from a young boy facing persecution in a communist China to becoming one of the leading eye surgeons in America, developing an innovative technology that restores sight in millions of people. Yeah, I watched this. This is one of those, for me, that goes to direct to stream. Like, this should be a direct to stream movie. It is not a theater movie. Because it's just like your typical like inspirational biopic film, but on someone that, while he did something really incredible, does it deserve a film? Does it have enough to make it a film? I don't know.
I think you'll see this film benefit from Ordinary Angels not coming out in October. This is going to reach that kind of audience. So Andrew Hyatt, who directed this, has done some faith kind of based films before this one. And this one's just, again, it's kind of that inspiring, feel good kind of story. It's got Greg Kinnear in it. Feels like he's been doing more of those. And this is going to be for the people that are not interested in the horror, for the people that are not interested in the action film. They're just looking for something to kind of feel good. You're right. I totally agree. I think it's a much more in line with what we would see of something that would just go direct to streaming, because there's not a huge demand for these kinds of films right now.
Because it's not like, that's not what theater to like the movie theater to me is anymore. Movie theaters are starting to become a place where you go to see spectacles, like you go for an event like Oppenheimer, Barbie, these kinds of movies. And if you're not hitting that anymore, I just don't think your movie's gonna do a lot.
Well, and what's kind of surprising to me is that when you see a film like Unbroken, came out a handful of years back. And that's a film that's kind of in this vein of that inspiring true story kind of deal. But there's a lot more at stake with a film like Unbroken with that story.
Yep.
That I feel like you don't really get, at least from what I've seen from this movie so far. And not saying that you should take someone's true story and make it grandiose and add all this stuff to it. But it just, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a ton to
even that one you're
intrigue.
talking about, The Unbroken. I mean, Angelina Jolie directed that, so like you got these bigger names. There's a little bit more to those, but yeah, I just don't see those, especially since COVID. You're just not, after COVID, like you're not seeing these films play well, except for very specific kind of things. And I would say even in like the faith-based, like religious aspect of a film industry, the only ones you're really seeing do well are like ones like Sound of Freedom that are not necessarily even like hopeful kind of content.
They're just, if anything, they're political statements.
Yeah. So, and that's I think that's the issue with some of that, like these. Yeah, I just don't like, inspirational is good, but I think the stories and whether or not it needs to go to theaters or not, it needs to be a good look at.
Yep.
So
now, granted, all power to Andrew Hyatt. He did, I think it was Paul the Apostle of Christ. That was a movie that I think had a $5 million budget and made $25 million. So it's possible that this film does a good bit better than maybe we might expect.
Now it's time for our so-called experts to make their picks. Should you stay at home, watch it on a plane, see it with a date, die happy never seeing it? And for the final selections, which movies would you go see in theaters? Sponsored by Fran 8K. You too can live in a world of green imagination.
Tim, which movie in here could you die happy never having seen?
Man, I mean, there's probably a few in here, but definitely the Taylor Swift film, The Eras Tour. I will never watch it.
You're not gonna take yours.
Well, like I'm not a horror film. I will sooner watch The Exorcist than watch the Taylor Swift film.
Wow.
Yeah.
If any of you knew Tim very personally, that's a very big statement there.
Yeah.
Okay. I would probably throw. There's a couple of these that like kind of surprised me as we kind of gone through them. But I'd probably throw The Post and The Post.
I will also accept that.
Sight, and probably Freelance.
Yeah.
Freelance, I'm a little on because I think that fits better in another category for me than just never seeing it. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. Like I just and really The Post, I just don't see much there. I feel like at least with Sight, it's kind of like, yeah, you could sit and watch it like during the holidays with your family and it would be whatever. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. All right, which movie on this list would you take your significant other to?
Probably Foe. I think Foe feels like a good date night kind of movie.
Yeah, it does because it is exploring a marriage and hopefully that's a good thing.
Hopefully my wife wouldn't leave that thinking that she needs a robot version of me. So I guess that's the danger of taking your significant other, is if it plants any ideas in their head. In that case, maybe you should just take them to go see Freelance.
Yeah, Freelance. That's gonna use. That's an easy one to go like on a date. Pretty safe. Like I feel like The Burial might be a little much for a date because it brings up some other that one's not gonna bring up any topics, any weird things on a date.
Yeah,
you just go watch John Cena beat up some people, hopefully, and have some little bit of comedy.
Yeah.
All right, which of these movies would you just say see it on the plane?
The Burial. The Burial, actually, funny enough, from the beginning of all this, is very much my type of plane kind of film. It's kind of like, man, I don't know if I get an opportunity to see this for free again, but I don't know that I'd want to pay to see it when I get home, but I am a little curious about it. So The Burial for me is like the perfect plane film of like, if there's the opportunity to watch it and you don't have to pay for something.
Okay, I'll watch it. Yeah.
And just kill some time on the plane.
Yeah, I think that was my question is like, is The Burial like, is it a movie theater movie? You gotta go watch in theaters. And to me, it sounds good. I'm actually gonna go. I want to go watch it now because of the critic score. I was actually expecting that. Yeah.
Well, and so if you guys are watching this, listening to this, like you got to understand, for me and John, like John and I will go see movies in theaters that, like The Burial, that are not necessarily like demand a big screen. But so it kind of depends on your definition of what you need to go see something in the theater. So where I have an AMC subscription, I'll go see more movies that might not even demand a movie theater release. But for a lot of people, I think they're really looking for like that big sound, that big size. Like I have to see it on a big screen. And a lot of these movies that are coming out this month aren't necessarily that.
Yeah. And that's one thing we try to cover, at least in this, is like, go see these movies. We're probably going to see some of these in theaters still, but here are the ones that we're saying, you got $10 and you can spend $10 this month on going to see a film. Go see these. Now see it at home. Before we get to see it in theaters or see it in theaters, pick of the month. Picks of the month. Which ones should we wait to see at home?
Wait to see how. I mean, for me, I want to go see Foe in the movie theaters, but that's one that like you might be able to wait until it comes to streaming. You know, and I think The Burial's the same kind of way for me. I'd prefer to kind of pass time on the plane. But it's also one that I probably would watch at home.
I would say
Freelance feels like a great Netflix film. Like if you're chilling back, you don't know what to watch. Like I could invest more Netflix time on that one than I could movie theater time.
Yeah. Freelance just feels like it's a good fit for a lot of things, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it. But not like one I want to necessarily go see in theaters. Maybe I would say Five Nights at Freddy could be considered a movie watch. I just don't know how scary they're trying to make it. Because if it's not supposed to be super scary or super horror-ish, like it kind of is, but it isn't. Like you could watch it at home and maybe get the same experience. But that one I'll put a little pin in between that to go see it at home. But for our picks of the month to go see in theaters, Tim, do you want to go first?
Killers of the Flower Moon. To me, like sure, you could talk about movies like Freelance and explosions and sounds and all this stuff. And for me, I'm not going to go see Killers of the Flower Moon on the big screen necessarily because of the action or the sound, but because I just am convinced that Martin Scorsese is a master artist, and even Leonardo DiCaprio in his own way. And so just to see those artists work on the biggest scale possible. So for me, just as a fan of the art of movies, Killers of the Flower Moon for me is a must watch in theaters. In fact, I got a notification on my phone the other day, the tickets were available to reserve for Killers of the Flower Moon, and I booked it immediately. Booked it immediately, and was disappointed that I was the second person to book for the showing that I did, and not the first.
You and I always book stuff so quick. I was like the first person to book for Creator for our IMAX theater. I would say Killers of the Flower Moon, definitely. Like that's just, go see, it's a Martin Scorsese film. It's one that has award hopes. And it's one that's worth seeing on the big screen because it's an artist at the top, maybe not at the top of his game anymore, but it is a seasoned veteran who's getting close to the end and always makes movies worth seeing in theaters, in my opinion.
Well, and for me, part of my calculation for going to see something in the theater versus watching it at home is how pausable is it? Like, so for me, a movie like Freelance, if there's something that comes up in the house and I have to pause it, you know, if I have to go to the bathroom or something, or like a kid comes out of the bedroom, whatever, like, or somebody knocks at the door, like Freelance seems like a very pausable movie. Killers of the Flower Moon, I don't want anybody bothering me at all. And now granted, I know for some people that might sound contrary. They're like, well, at the theater, aren't people like talking on their phone? They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be.
They are. Tell them that
if they are,
don't be quiet.
Then I will tell them to get off my lawn. But for me, like Killers of the Flower Moon is not a pausable movie. You cannot pause it. Like you have to watch it from start to finish. And I actually think the movie theater provides like the least amount of potential interruptions. And it's just a perfect environment to watch a movie in.
Yeah, especially you get like a nice loud theater, like an IMAX or something. That might be one to do IMAX. I'm going to mark another one.
It's coming out in Dolby too.
Do that. Good sound system's always really great. The next one I would mark as a go see it in theaters. If you're into this, go see Exorcist Believer in theaters. It is of my opinion that horror movies are best watched in theaters. You get the best experience, the best experience watching horror movies in theaters, not at home.
Yeah.
You can watch them at home; they're fine, but I just don't think you get that sound.
No.
And that experience.
Well, and the collective experience of it, the being in a room with 100 other people who are all feeling the exact same emotion that you are and screaming at the same stuff that you are. So that's part of what you have to think about with these movies too, is like, what are the ones that I really need that kind of community for?
Yeah. Exorcist Believer, definitely go see that one in theaters. And I'm going to make a little bit of a surprise pick here.
Okay.
I would say Foe.
Yeah.
Depending on what you like in theaters, could be one that you could benefit from not having distractions for a very seemingly philosophical movie. And sometimes I actually like going to theaters for like more like a movie like The Green Knight or something that's a little bit more like ethereal kind of with its because it kind of helps you pay attention. You get a little bit more wrapped up in it than you will at home. If you have things going around, or you can look at your phone or stuff like that. So if you like those kind of movies and you like more of an artistic art kind of piece that asks probably some good philosophical questions, sci-fi questions, maybe consider going seeing Foe in the theaters.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. And again, for me, it comes down to like just seeing Paul Mescal and Saoirse Ronan, just masterful artists performing on a big screen. You know, I mean, you can go listen to your favorite musical artist at home, but if you get the chance to hear them perform live, you know, you want to try and find that optimal experience. And so if there's actors that you're really a big fan of, I think to be able to watch them in the optimal viewing experience, that's something you should try and do.
Absolutely. So that kind of wraps up our, I think, see it in theaters thing. I guess the only little caveat I would put, a little pin in the Five Nights at Freddy is like, if you were interested in that, I would go see that in theaters.
That's a good popcorn movie, it feels like.
It's a good, like that one could be fun in theaters.
Yeah.
But I'm not like sold on it as like, I have to go see it in theaters. And I definitely wouldn't put that on the top of your list. Like I got $10-$20 to go see maybe like 1 or 2 movies this month. So those lists would include probably number 1, Flowers of the Killer Moon. Am I saying that right?
Killers of the
Flower Moon. Yep. Killers of the Flower Moon. Followed by The Exorcist Believer. And then I would say Foe. Or actually I would say Five Nights at Freddy and then Foe. Foe's kind of like at the bottom of go see it theaters. Yeah. Otherwise, see it on a plane, see it with your significant other, and or watch it at home, or just don't even care about it if you've never seen it. But that about wraps it up, Tim. That was fun. That was fun October.
It was fun. October's going to be, there's some good stuff. October gives me hope.
Yeah. I know November's going to be jam-packed stuff since everything got kind of moved up to there. And there's a lot of stuff coming out in November still, even with Dune moving, Dune 2 moving into March 2024 next year. But we will be back next month for all the stuff, but definitely stay tuned. We're going to try to do some more podcasts around some movies and stuff and production, and definitely go and check out Frame Voyager YouTube channel, which most of you probably are already subscribed, but we cover even more in depth there. And leave a like and a rating on our podcast network. And we'll catch you guys later.